Bava Kamma Daf Mem Tet Amud Bet, failure of responsibility, Al-Iskei, Pthicha, Uchriya. We've been dealing with various different categories of Nezikin, different categories of damage, and each have an icon that represents that category. So we've dealt with Shor HaMazik, the ox that damages. He either damages by Keren, using his horns to gore, or Regel, using his feet to trample, or Shein, using his mouth and his teeth to graze and cause damage to surrounding fields as a result of that. And we had Eish, which is the Nezek of fire, and now we're dealing with Bor, the category of damage represented by the pit, where one digs a pit, a ditch, something potentially damaging in a place where the public or others have access. We're not talking about digging pits in your own private property where nobody else should be, but doing so in areas where other people are entitled to be and their animals are entitled to be. That's the category of Bor. And in approaching them, I want to show you how to start with a new idea with first principles. On the next Talmud, on Daf Yomi, we start getting into more granular detail about the Bor. And we could start off right away of understanding what everybody says. What do the Amoraim say about Bor? What do the Rishonim say about Bor? What do the Achronim say about Bor? But I prefer to take you through a process of first, what do we say about Bor? What are our understandings of the first principles? And then let's evolve our understanding as we move through. When you're learning in this way, it's important to remain very open-minded. We can't become rigid about one's ideas if one's allowing ideas to evolve, and that's how ideas remain flexible and alive and dynamic, and it becomes an important process of learning. And this is a great example of where we'll start with Bor. As you'll see, I haven't brought a lot of sources here. I just want to look at the essence of what's the issue about Bor, what's the uniqueness of Bor, how do we understand, what's the framework, what's the paradigm, the lens through which we're going to start looking at Bor. And then we'll develop it, and maybe we'll have to modify it, maybe we'll have to change it. That's part of the learning process. Let's start with the Pasuk. The Pasuk is in Mishpatim, the verse on the Torah, "V'chiyiftach ish bor or chiyichrei ish bor, v'lo yichasem." If a man opens a pit or digs a pit and doesn't cover it, v'nafal shama shor or chamor, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, Ba'al habor yishalem kesef yashiv leba'alav, the owner of the pit will pay and return money to the owner, v'ameit yelo, and then the dead carcass of the animal in the pit can belong to him, but he's going to pay the owner in full for the animal. That's the Pasuk. There are many things that come to mind. Firstly, we're talking about digging a pit in a place where people are walking, where animals are walking. So we're talking about Reshut HaRabim, as we will see. We're talking about the public domain. What's the Baal HaBor? Who's the owner of the Bor? How do you become the owner of a Bor? How do you own a Bor? You've created a hole, you've created a ditch, a stumbling block So a stumbling block, if you put a beam of wood which belongs to you in the Reshut HaRabim, that's different. But you dig a hole, you've just taken sand, you've taken earth out of the Reshut HaRabim. Why does that make it your pit? What is the Baal HaBor? Secondly, we've just been learning. 3 days ago, we learned about a neighbor who dumps fruit into his neighbor's yard. The owner of the yard's animal eats the fruit and overeats and dies. The din of Rav, you remember, Hayala Shilot, she shouldn't have eaten the animal, shouldn't have eaten the fruit. It's not the problem. The person put the fruit there in the first place. What about that? But after all, if if my neighbor wouldn't have dumped his fruit in my property, my animal wouldn't have eaten the fruit. So what did the Tosfos Rid say about that? Do you remember? Why am I not responsible for putting the fruit there in the first place? That's because the animal should have done it, but after all, I facilitated it. What did we say? What did the Tosfos Rid say? Groma. Remember the Tosfos Rid? That's groma. That's direct damages. It's morally wrong, but there's no legal claim. You facilitated the damage, but it's not direct damage. So why is this not groma? I put a pit in the Reshut HaRabim. I dig a hole in the Reshut HaRabim. Somebody's animal gets damaged. Morally wrong. No question. I should not be digging holes in Reshut HaRabim. But what's the legal claim on it? It's not my hole. The animal should watch where it's going. We learned back on Choftes, if you remember, that human beings sometimes are preoccupied and don't look where they're going. Do you remember that? But animals, their heads are down. They look where they're going. So the animal, the same as we said with the fruit, the animal shouldn't have fallen into the pit. The fact that I dug the pit where I shouldn't have dug it, that's grama. I came in no direct connection with your animal. It might have been a week later. There's no connection between my digging the pit and your animal falling in. Yes, I caused it. Had I not dug the pit, the animal wouldn't have fallen off. But that's grama. So what is it with this thing of the pit? Interesting. The Chizkuni says on the pasuk. The Chizkuni is a Rishon, I think in the 13th century. The Chizkuni He doesn't do a lot of original work. He was like a scholar. He went around looking for various manuscripts that explained the Torah, and he brought them together. He curated them into an anthology, and we have that as the Chizkuni on the Torah. The Chizkuni says there, "V'nafal sham ashor v'lo adam mishum da'adam ba'datu v'yibai liyuno amazing." We learn in the Gemara, and we learn back on Daf Chavtet, that this only applies to an ox, to an animal falling into the pit. But if a human being falls into the pit, I'm not chayiv kofer. I don't have to pay for that person's life. Why, says the Chizkuni? Because the human being should look where he's going. Even though we said a person is sometimes preoccupied, he might walk into a beam, he might walk into something, walk into somebody, or into somebody carrying something, which is the case we had there. But to fall into a hole, a person doesn't do that kind of thing. He looks where he's going. But an animal, for the person, he caused his own damage. But when it comes to when it comes to utensils, to kelim, a human being carries the kelim. So again, the human being should be watching where he's carrying the kelim. But an animal, an ox, a donkey, walks around, doesn't know what it is, it flips into the hole. That's why it is. So we see that this is designed specifically for animals. Says the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra is just it's fascinating altogether. The Ibn Ezra, people don't learn him a lot because he's so difficult. The Ibn Ezra was an adventurer intellectually and physically. He lived in Spain, he lived in North Africa, he lived in Italy and Southern Europe, he lived all over the world. And he taught it, he learned Torah all over the world. And he was a scientist and an astronomer and a massive Talmud Chacham. And the Ibn Ezra writes, why is the Torah so concerned about your digging a pit? It's not your bit, it's indirect damage. Ki ein Hashem chafetz shetamut behema chinam shelo letzorech adam. The Torah doesn't want animals dying needlessly. The only reason to kill an animal is for the need of a human. That's something the environmentalists don't even get, that we're allowed to use the environment to progress humanity, because humanity is the highest form of life on the planet, and the whole planet is here to serve humanity's pursuit of avodas Hashem, of service of God ultimately, not humanity's pursuit of nonsense, not humanity's pursuit of cruelty and of immorality, but humanity's pursuit of greatness. The whole planet is here to support humanity's pursuit of greatness. So if an animal is going to sustain a human being, you kill the animal. If an animal is going to provide leather for a human being, and the human being is going to be a great, fine human being, you kill the animal. It's done for animals to die. So you see, certainly hunting would never be allowed. Hunting for sport would never be allowed according to the Torah. It says the Ibn Ezra, Ki ein Hashem chafetz shetamut behema chinam shelo letzorech adam. And some people say, where does it say in the Torah, thou shalt not hunt? Here you've got it, says the Ibn Ezra. You see, from here, the Torah does not want animals to die for no reason at all. And that's part of what this din is of the pit. Also, you're causing financial loss to the owner of the animal. But that's his secondary reason. The first reason, says the Ibn Ezra, is be careful that you don't do things where animals are walking that could cause the animal to die. You might kill an animal needlessly. That Hashem doesn't want that to be. So we see this idea of fit, we see the Rishonim already struggling with what is it, why is it, and it's so different. Now, in the very first Mishnah, in the introduction to Bava Kamma, we learned, Bor is unique in that it's the only nezek, it's the only category of nezikin that doesn't go to the nizak. In all the other cases, the ox goes out and causes damage, whether through the keren or shein or regel, through goring or through eating or through grazing and walking on the fields. The animal goes and does it. Eish, the fire goes from your property and it moves somewhere else. But bor is stationary. What happens? Somebody else comes and falls in the bor. All the more reason that it should be considered grama, that it should be considered a secondary. It says the Mishnah, the common denominator of all categories of nezek is they can be predicted to cause damage. They are all capable of causing damage. And you should be responsible for protecting it. Here we have a hint at our approach that we're going to evolve for both. The essence is not that it's yours, but shmiratan alecha. You are responsible to take care of it. Why are you responsible to take care of it? Now we come to our Gemara on Daf Memtes on the bed. Omar Kra, ki yiftach v'chi yichre, im al pticha chayav al kriya lo kol shchen. If the Torah says by merely opening a pit that somebody else dug, somebody else digs a pit and covers it, you uncover it, you're responsible. Why does the Torah then still have to tell me ki yichre? And also if you dig it, of course, if you dig it, that's a kosher. If you're responsible for uncovering a pit that somebody else dug, you're certainly responsible for covering a pit that you dug. What the Torah is teaching us is this is not because it's your pit. It's not because of the pit. It's because of the activity. It was the digging and the uncovering which creates the chiyuv. The chiyuv is created by the action, not by the object, unlike the other categories of nezek. The other categories of nezek, it's your ox. The ox that caused it, you are responsible because you own the ox. The eish, the fire caused it, you are responsible because you set the fire going. The pit is not yours, it's in Reshut Rabim. You didn't do it in your property altogether. But it's al escape, kriya. It's about the matters of digging, it's about the actions of digging. What bothered me with this wording in this Gemara is escape ticha. Why doesn't it say al ma'aseh ticha? Al ma'aseh kriya. What you're higher for is the act of digging. What you're higher for is the act of uncovering. What's escape? The business of covering, of uncovering a pit. The business of digging a pit. What's the business? And the key to that, I think that we're going to find back in our Gemara Daf Kaftet Amud Bet. Amar Rabbi Lozo b'shum Rabbi Yishmael, Shnei dvarim einan b'rishuto shel adam v'asa'an hakatuv ki'ilu hein b'rishuto. We discussed this in the Matmonim Shir. There are two things which don't belong to a human being, but the Torah treats them as if they do belong to an individual. Ve'elu hein, these are they. Bor b'rishut harabim, a bor in the public domain. It's not yours, but you're called Baal HaBor, but you're not the owner of the bor. You didn't buy it. You didn't invest in it. It's not in your property. It's in public property. What is the ownership? The Torah says we're going to treat it as if it's yours. And chametz, after 6 hours on Erev Pesach, the chametz is asur b'hana'ah. You're not allowed to get benefit from your chametz. That means it's not yours anymore. If it's not yours anymore, how can you be over? How can you transget Ba'al Yeroya, Ba'al Yabatzeh, that you're not allowed to have chametz in your possession? It's not in your possession. The Torah has taken it out of your possession. That says Rabbi Yishmael. The Torah puts it back in your possession in as much as you are chayiv for the isur of chametz. That's what it does. Now, why these two points? Are they random examples of things that the Torah happens to put in your responsibility? Or is there a connection between the two? Is there something that chametz can teach us about bor? Because that will open our approach to understanding the nature of bor. What can chametz teach you about bor? Let's have a look at chametz. What have you done wrong with chametz? It's now an hour before Pesach. You've got chametz in your house. Does that chametz belong to you? You weren't mevatel. You didn't burn the chametz. You didn't annul the chametz. You didn't even know the chametz existed. You've just suddenly discovered there's chametz in your house and you didn't have it in mind to annul it. Is it your chametz? No, you've got no. You're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to get any benefit from it. Hashem has taken the Torah, has taken the chametz out of your ownership. But you're chayiv. Why are you chayiv? You're not chayiv because it's yours. You're chayiv because when it was yours, you didn't destroy it. You failed in your responsibility of ownership at the time that you had the authority to do something about it. Bor is about failure. It's not about ownership. It's about failure to do what you're meant to do as a responsible citizen. And that failure makes you responsible. You own the responsibility, you don't own the bor. And the same with bor. What does the Torah says? You'll see it so beautifully in the words of the Torah. V'chi yiftach ish bor or yichre ish bor. And then what does the Torah says? Say, v'lo yechasenu. The problem is not that you dug the bor. The problem is not that you uncovered the bor. You're busy. You're fixing the pipes there. You're creating a terror tunnel under the Rishus Harabim. People do those kinds of things. So you're busy. So you do that. But cover it when you're finished. V'lo yechasenu. Bor is about the failure of responsibility. Bor is not about your property caused damage. Bor is about the failure. What does the Mishnah say on Daf Beis? You've created something capable of damaging. This is not a neutral object. This is not a bag of fruit which you've dumped in your neighbor's yard. Fruit isn't a mazik. Here you've created a mazik. If you've created a mazik, You chayav to take care, you're responsible for it. And just as if you have chometz erev Pesach, you have to destroy the chometz. So if you have a bor in Rishut HaRabim, you have to cover the bor. Why are you chayav? Lo yechasenu. You chayav because you didn't cover it. You're not chayav because you dag it. That's iskei pticha and iskei kriya. It's not the maaseh kriya, and it's not the maaseh pticha. It's not the action of having dag. That's not the problem. The problem is iskei, the outcomes, the results, the consequences. What are the iskei? Like you've got a business, you're responsible for your business. It's not just that you own your business, you have responsibility to your stakeholders. If you have a bor in Rishus Harabim, there are iskei, there are stakeholders in that. It's not just you. There are stakeholders in that bor. And if there's stakeholders in that bor, you have a responsibility. Just like the chometz in Erev Pesach, you failed in your responsibility. So with the bor b'rishus harabim v'lo yechasenu, you failed in your responsibility, and failure of responsibility creates culpability and liability.